Hello, beautiful vegans. I'm Mariquita Solis, vegan empowerment coach, and I'm excited to be here with Dr. Will Tuttle, author of the World Peace Diet, and he's a renowned speaker and expert in vegan living and vegan peace. So he's going to be bringing his wisdom and his calm energy and his acceptance of life, all these beautiful gifts and elements that we can learn more about and bring into our lives today. So everyone that's watching, please tell us where you're watching from. And we're here to answer questions. We'd love to hear your feedback. Make sure you give StreamYard permission to use your name. And let's hit the road on this. Finding inner peace in a pre-vegan world is so important. So thank you for coming, Dr. Will. I'm honored to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariquita. It's an honor to be with you. And thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. It's great to be here.
Thank you. If you would do the honor of starting us off with a little grounding meditation, I feel like that would be such a blessing.
Great. Okay. Let's just have a short meditation together to begin our time. And I just want to invite everyone now to connect. Let's connect with our breathing. With every exhalation, we let go of any thoughts of the past or any thoughts of the future. Allow ourselves to enter more deeply into this present moment, the heart of this moment. The heart of living is right now. So with every exhalation, we relax into this present moment. The only holy moment is right now. So breathing together, we give thanks for this precious opportunity of a human birth, for this precious opportunity to awaken every day more fully and more deeply to our true nature, and to connect with the unity of all life and the source of all life. We give thanks knowing that we are connected at the deepest level with the infinite love that is the source of all life, and we right now just open to knowing that the light that shines at the very heart of the universe is shining right now in our heart, is shining in every cell of our being and bringing every dimension of our life into alignment with the abundance and beauty and peace, harmony and freedom and creativity that are our true nature, bringing every dimension of our life into radiant health and wellness, joy and peace. And finally, we give thanks, knowing that we are part of the awakening of human consciousness on this earth, and that every day we open more fully to the unique gifts that we have to give to help humanity at this critical time. Through the power and presence of the infinite spirit of truth and love, we give thanks, knowing this is so. And so it is. All right.
Thank you. It's beautiful when we can start our day from a place of grounding and peace and really connecting with the universe, right? Knowing that the universe loves us, and to feel that love, just to look up and see the sun or the clouds and the rain and say thank you, right? Thank you for everything. It's a tremendous blessing when we're living that in that mindfulness and that awareness. So
Exactly.
thank you for bringing that in.
Great.
Well, thanks, Mario, Susan, and Trisha. Thanks for watching us and joining. Um, you know, a lot of times we're going in our path and we're meeting people all the time. And, well, talking about pre-vegans, I just wanted to ask you a question, but I still want to hear about your background, but this question just popped up into my mind, so I'm going to ask it. What where can we hold a space of gratitude for pre-vegans?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. And I think the underlying idea, of course, is that all of us have been pre-vegans ourselves. I know I certainly was. And I can love myself as a young little kid, as a young man, and cooking chicken and eggs and bacon and all that stuff. I did all that in my earlier years, and I didn't, in a sense, I didn't know any better. It wasn't that I had this yearning to cause misery and violence in the world at all. I was just the opposite. But like everyone, I was raised in a society where that's what we all did, and we learned how to do that. And we ate animal-based foods because our parents and teachers and friends and neighbors and relatives and the media, everybody, and being tribal, we're all tribal basically. We eat the food that the tribe is eating. And I think it's really beautiful to give thanks, knowing that everyone has within us, all of us have within us, compassion and empathy and wisdom, and that we are all on a path of awakening. It's like looking at an apple tree, and if you see some of the apples are so ripe and then they just fall off, and it's easy to love those because they're delicious. Then there's these other apples that are kind of green and they're not ripe and they haven't fallen yet, and you don't just look at them and say, "I hate you, you're not ripe yet." I curse you. We know that they're ripening, and they'll get delicious too, and they'll ripen in their time and maybe even be better than the other ones. I mean, who knows? So we have to see we're all fruits on the same tree. We all have our time of ripening, and it's not really anything any better than anything else. It's like a river coming down out of the mountains. Some rivers go rushing down very quickly, and some kind of go a longer way, and they weave around. It takes a while, but they have their rhythm, and it's not that the infinite love that is the source of all the rivers likes the faster ones more than the slower ones. They all have their own tempo and time. So I think that's really the key, and it's nothing to be proud of if we're a fast river or if we're a riper fruit or whatever. It's just a different style. And I think in the long run, we're all going to the same ocean. We're all going to the same place, and we all have the same source.
Well, that's beautiful. Definitely. That's right. We all have the same source. You're right. And then we all want to be happy, right? We all want a peaceful life. So tell me about your ripening process. So you weren't born vegan. You were born in a meat eating household. And did you ever have thoughts of, like, as a little boy, what were you like as a little boy?
I was born and raised, I think, I really think a very fortunate kind of a family and surroundings. It was back in the 1950s. I was born in the early 1950s. And it was a little town of Concord, Massachusetts, which was kind of neat because that was where there was the Revolutionary War started there, and so when I get a little bit older, I learned more about the Revolutionary War, and my father got into it, and he became a Minuteman, and every April 19th, which is Patriots Day, in that area, we would celebrate the beginning of the revolution, where we would fight against the British, and he would get dressed up in his Minuteman outfit and get the gun off the wall, this old fashioned musket with a ramrod, and they'd go down and they would reenact the battle, and the other men would be dressed up like redcoats, like the British, and they would kind of shoot at each other and celebrate the revolution, celebrate this idea that if you have a government that is tyrannical, that it's a good idea to do what you can to change it. And then there was also a little bit later, there was the revolution of the Transcendentalists in the 1800s. And so I was actually born in Emerson Hospital, went to Thoreau School and Alcott School, and learned to swim in Walden Pond. I went to swimming lessons there, and back before it became a big historical landmark. And so there was this feeling also, I think, of philosophy, that like questioning just the usual way of doing things. Emerson and Thoreau they were really radical. And I found out later, after I became a vegan, they actually had the very first vegan community ever in North America back in the 1840s. Where they wouldn't wear even leather. They wouldn't eat meat or dairy or eggs. They wouldn't even wear cotton because cotton came from slavery back in the 1840s. So they were walking through the snowdrifts of Concord in shoes made out of linen. So they were hardcore vegans way back, a couple hundred years ago, right there where I grew up. And so I think some of that maybe percolated through, but my father and my mother were wonderful role models for me. I really have to say, I feel very fortunate. My mother was an artist. She went to Rhode Island School of Design and was really good watercolor painter. Of course, I married a watercolor painter, Madeline from Switzerland. And, but I always, I feel really fortunate. My parents were very interesting people. She was an artist, and I had a philosophical bent. She lived to be 94, just passed away less than a year ago, and was a vegan the last 20 years of her life, which was great. And my father wanted to be a doctor, and so he was a medic in World War II and went over in D-Day and was in France working as a medic in the war. And he didn't want, after that, he didn't want to be a doctor anymore. And I said, "What did you do when you were a medic?" And he said, "One of the main things I did was there would be these long lines of soldiers, and I was the one that gave him the injections." And he said, "I don't think it was helping him." So his advice was stay away from doctors. And I actually think that was one of the smart things I learned from him. I've managed to stay away from doctors for the last about 45 or 50 years. And so he went into the media. He actually bought a newspaper right about the time I was born, right before I was born, actually. He and my mother bought a little newspaper called The Beacon right there in Concord. So I was the oldest child. And so I was raised in this kind of swirling, very exciting world of the newspaper business. And there was news, there was deadlines, there was the senators and congressmen. My father knew them all. It was like the power of the press was amazing. And but I learned from that, besides learning not to trust doctors in the medical establishment, I learned not to trust the media. Because I really learned growing up that you cannot run news articles that your advertisers will object to, because then they'll pull their ads and you'll go out of business. So I learned really early on that the corporations run the media by their advertising. And that's been very helpful for me to understand that very deeply and not be manipulated. I see so many people believe the media, and I learned early on, don't believe anything. It's all created by the advertisers. And the biggest advertisers, of course, are meat, dairy, and egg, and drug, and big banks and oil companies and so forth. So it's really, that was good to learn. But basically, my father and mother were nature lovers. So we spent a lot of time in the mountains. And my memories as a kid was just climbing in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, skiing a lot, and then really into sports, tennis, baseball, basketball, hockey, every sport you can imagine we did. We just loved swimming, kayaking, canoeing, sailing. There was no sport we just didn't jump into. I had a younger brother, 2 years younger than me, Ed. He's still around. We're still really close. And my sister. So there was the three of us, and we were all very athletic. I mean, my brother was really good. He was like an all-star pitcher on the baseball. So and my sister was a good, she was on the swim team. I was on the tennis team, on the cross-country ski team, the hockey team, football team. We just loved playing sports. My father was on the football team when he was in high school. So we had this whole kind of like a jock a little bit growing up. But he played the piano. That was a neat thing. And I was the oldest son. So I got right into music as soon as I was 3 or 4 years old. I started playing the piano, and I've been playing it ever since. And I'm so grateful for that. He taught me for the first up until junior high and high school. And then in high school, I started taking lessons. And then I was a church organist actually in high school. I played the organ for the local Methodist church. And my brother played the guitar. And so we would very musical. We did a lot of music. My grandparents always wanted us to play for them when we visited them, which was like every weekend. So I was always giving concerts and playing. So there was a lot of music, a lot of nature, a lot of sort of creativity. And then my father was writing editorials all the time. So it was political. I mean, so political. Like everything was politics, and he was very, very outspoken. And he hated the idea of ever doing anything because you wanted to please people. He was like complete non-conformist. He would wear clothes that were inappropriate and didn't care what anybody thought. He was one of these people that just thought you shouldn't care what other people think about you. Just don't care. It doesn't matter. Be your own person. And he got more and more, it's interesting, he got more and more to the right. He kept drifting farther and farther to the right. I kept drifting farther and farther to the left. By the time I was in college, I was way out there on the left. I thought, I was against war. It was the Vietnam War was going on. I was going to protest against the war. He was an anti-communist. He thought everybody should be free. We shouldn't allow these communists, so we were just arguing. We couldn't even talk about anything without arguing. It was funny. But then out of the whole thing, my brother and I got this spiritual thing came when I was in college. I started reading Emerson and Thoreau, and that led to Whitman and led to Zen and Bhagavad Gita and doing yoga and meditation. And I remember going to my father and my mother when I came home on the breaks from college. I went to college in Maine, Colby College. And I was doing kind of a liberal arts. I was taking business courses because I was going to take over my father's newspaper. That was what I was raised to do. I was going to take over and by that point he had a chain of 13 newspapers. So he was very successful. But his grandfather, his father, my grandfather, was a great accountant with Ernst & Ernst, and he ran all the books, but he died. And so I was taking accounting so I could do all that. But I didn't like it. I didn't like accounting. I didn't like business. I didn't like marketing, but I did like writing. I thought, well, I'll be like my father. I'll write and I'll find somebody else to do all that. But then when I went through this whole spiritual awakening, I just felt like I want to meditate. I don't want my life to be sidetracked for 60 years. And I get to be in my 70s. And like, what did I do with my life? I never grew spiritually. I was just busy all the time. Like my father was just busy all the time, trying to run a business. It's great. It was a great service, but I felt that there isn't enough time to meditate. I really wanted to meditate more. So to my delight, my brother actually agreed completely. He said, yes, that's the most important thing. And so we had this really deep kind of bonding experience where we realized how much we really loved each other, even though we had been very competitive when we were younger. And so we said to my parents, we want to leave home and walk all the way to California on a spiritual pilgrimage. And my father, bless his heart, I remember he was disappointed that we didn't take over his business, but he didn't say, he said, go ahead. He said, he quoted Thoreau. He said, every man must march to the beat of the drum that he hears. And if that's the beat of the drum that you hear, go for it. So I was really in tears that he was so loving about it. And he was, and my mother too. So I remember we walked down the driveway with some fresh baked cookies from my mother, and we didn't have any money or anything. We just had these little backpacks with a few extra clothes. And we walked and got about as far as Buffalo, New York, after about, I guess, a month or two. And we realized it was getting cold. It was October and getting cold. So we just walked south, and we ended up walking, instead of going to California, we walked all the way to Alabama, to Huntsville. And we didn't realize we were going to go there, but we just walked south, and we walked down through upstate New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. And by the time we got to Tennessee, it was late December, and we stopped at a place called The Farm, which was the largest hippie community in the world. And that's where we really heard more about vegetarianism and veganism. We were meditating, and I was thinking more. I was just knew we should eat less meat, but I thought we needed the protein, and we had no money. So every night we would go into a little town, like somewhere in Pennsylvania or West Virginia or Kentucky, And we hit the Bible Belt when we hit West Virginia. And I didn't know what that meant, being basically from New England. We didn't have any of that I knew of. And, but that meant they try to save you every night, you know? And so we were getting this hardcore fundamentalist Christian every night. And so I was learning about how to navigate that. But the whole idea, we didn't have any money. So we would ask if we could just spend the night on the floor of the church. And they'd say, sure, but do you know Jesus? And then they try to save us. And we'd say, yeah, we know, you know. But we were meditating, and we were following a Hindu kind of who am I teaching of and Zen. You know, it was like an Eastern path. But we love Jesus too. We thought, well, he's great. You know, he's doing the same thing. I mean, it's all the same thing. So we got into all kinds of conversations with these people, and it was very interesting. But it was great. They were basically nice, but we got picked up by the police. We spent the night in jail sometimes because we didn't have a place to stay, which was sometimes was okay. Sometimes it was terrible. You know, we saw a lot of injustice, and we saw a lot, actually. I mean, I probably should write a whole book about it at some point, but we just walked, and we were very vulnerable since we didn't have any money. But we ended up at this community at the farm finally, and they were all vegetarians, and they were all hippies from California, mostly about 900 people. And that was where I learned more about the cruelty to animals. They told us, you know, and they told us about the fact that we could feed everyone if everyone would eat a plant-based diet. But the problem is it's so wasteful of grain and land that people are starving, and most of the food we're feeding to these cows and pigs, and we could feed people. So I was eating with them every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was always plant-based. It was just basically a lot of soybeans. Back that's what hippies ate, was soybeans back in the 70s. Soybeans and rice. You know, we had to make these big stews, and they'd cook soybeans for 12 hours on the stove. You know, it was on a wood stove. It was so primitive. I mean, it was really primitive. It was freezing cold. And hard. It was a hard life, but I worked there at the farm in the print shop because I knew all about printing. I worked in my father's print shop, so I helped them print the spiritual midwifery guide. It had just been written, and my sister got a copy, and she gave birth to her 3 children right in her own house, which was great. And but anyway, so we were there for a while, but then we left. Probably only there for about a month. Then we left and walked down to Huntsville. But by that time, I never ate meat in my life after that. I became vegetarian because of them. And then we lived in Huntsville, Alabama at a Zen center for about a year. And then we moved over to another meditation center in South Atlanta. It was the same teacher. She was a disciple of this Korean Zen master that we had met in Huntsville, and we studied with her for about a year. And then I lived in Atlanta for about a year and a half, and worked at the Holiday Inn at the Atlanta airport, and meditated and at this center. But then I really felt the calling to go to California, so I drove out to California in the late 1970s and moved into a Tibetan Buddhist meditation center right in San Francisco, which was really intense. And I lived there for a few years and got to study really with a lot of high lamas, including the Dalai Lama when he came through, and a lot of other famous lamas, and did a lot of retreats. I did I don't know, it was probably 120-day silent retreat in a cabin by myself in the woods in Oregon. I did a lot of meditation. I mean, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And then I moved to Oakland and I studied with back to the Korean Zen meditation tradition that I had started in Alabama. And then I decided to become a Zen Buddhist monk. And so I shaved my head. I went to South Korea and I lived in a monastery there. And by that time I had become a vegan. I became a vegan in 1980 when I learned more about the dairy and egg industries. And so I've been a vegan now for 42 years. It was great. But when I got to Korea, I was in this monastery called Songwangsa, and it was so great because I realized that they had been practicing veganism for about 750 years.
Wow.
And it was so great. It was just this ancient wisdom, you know, all the meals were rice and vegetables. and there was no meat, dairy, or eggs, but also no leather anywhere, and no harming insects. I mean, it was really a ahimsa. It was the ancient Sanskrit word that means nonviolence. We were meditating from 3 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night every day. So it was a really intense meditation practice. And going through that really helped me to connect, I think, at a much deeper level with what veganism is as a spiritual practice. And now I really feel that veganism and spirituality are one. They're absolutely one. There's no separation. They're two sides of the same coin, actually. When we develop spirituality, we're naturally are drawn to nonviolence, naturally. And as we are drawn to nonviolence, we're going to be naturally drawn to spirituality. We're going to see that we all come from the same source, and harming others becomes more and more ridiculous. And we begin to see through the illusion of being a separate self, which, as long as I think I'm separate, then I'm trying to compete and get and keep away and fight and struggle and use others to get what I want. And once we realize that that's not what we are, we're not this body, we're not this thing, this object that was born and will die. We are the infinite source that makes this body possible. And this is just a few decades here that we're expressing through this vehicle. And we look at others and we see in their eyes, it's the same thing, looking out of their eyes and looking out of my eyes, and it's the same source. And so we naturally have a sense of love and respect for each other and for other expressions of life when our meditation, I think, begins to bear fruit. And so veganism becomes just a natural expression of that. So I think it's very important for people who are on a path of spirituality to really move away from eating animal foods, all of it, and harming other beings. And I think it's really important for people who are going vegan to start meditating and start getting some foundation, a spiritual foundation. Because a lot of people go vegan and do it because they see a video of cruelty, or because they hear that dairy and meat are unhealthy, or whatever. But it's really important to get a spiritual foundation underneath, and I think that's missing in many cases. So to bring those two together, I think, is really important. So that's a little bit of how I got here at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful story. And I love the fact, your brother, and I'm wondering if who in the family is vegan, and how they all, like how your parents reacted to all this. But I love also, so I want to know those answers, but I love the way that the unity, right? When you're really tying into the whole unity of the bigger picture, right? And you're taking ego and putting it to the side, then it's only natural that we are vegan, right? Because then we're in this living energy of abundance, and not just for us, but for all the world. So I love the way that you brought that to light. So
Right.
yeah. And so what did so where's your brother now, and where's your sister? And are they vegan? Your brother vegan, I assume.
Well, actually, okay. So this is interesting. So well, I'll talk about my sister and my brother both. Yeah, my sister, she went a path of being very Christian, really kind of. And my mother did, like when my brother and I went off on our spiritual path. I think it really, in a sense, forced my mother to think, what's my spirituality? And we had always gone to church, and we were always Christian growing up. And I think she really started to move in that direction as a Christian very strongly, like really getting into the Bible and studying and going to church and working with a lot with spirituality. And my sister did too, as a Christian. So they were like born again fundamentalist Christians. And my sister's kids and husband, everybody, they were really into that, and which was fine, because but they weren't so wild about the fact that I was a Buddhist monk in a way, because they thought, well, that's not Christian. But from my point of view, it wasn't a conflict. And but the neat thing was, when I wrote the World Peace Diet, I sent some preliminary drafts of the manuscript to my mother and my sister, and they were reading it and giving me feedback. And lo and behold, they went vegan.
Wow.
but the thing was that, which was great. And that, but it was 15 years. That book didn't come out till 15 years after I first went vegan. And that was about when so a lot of people say, well, I can't get my parents, I can't get my siblings to go vegan. And I say, well, how long have you been trying? And they say, oh, I've been trying for 2 years. Well, it might take 15 years. You got to kind of, I worked on them for quite a while. I mean, I would say, let's watch a video when I visited them. Let's watch these videos and let's talk about it. So it took quite a bit of just planting seeds, I guess. That's all we can do. If you just plant seeds, we can't change other people, but we can plant seeds. So I planted seeds, and lo and behold, I get an email one day from my sister saying, the Lord came to me and told me to go vegan. And she's been vegan ever since, and she's very, very much involved with her Christian tradition and her church and everything. And she's probably the only vegan. My mother became a Christian missionary eventually, and moved into Philadelphia and worked in the inner cities with, at-risk youth, and had bullet holes in her car and all this stuff. And she stayed vegan and through the whole thing, and right up till the end. So it's really great. I mean, I really feel so grateful for them, and we're on the same page about virtually everything. And my brother is doing great. He ended up eventually going to South America after working in computers in Atlanta for about 15 years. He went to South America and studied shamanism, and apprenticed to some shamans who do ayahuasca and other kinds of ceremonies. And he met a woman down there named Tanya, and they got married, and they have a daughter, and they have a shamanic healing retreat center on the Ecuadorian coast. And they've been doing that for 30 years now. So I'm still close to him, but he's in Ecuador. So I don't see him that often, but we talk together all the time. And the irony is he's the younger brother. So he's pretty much vegan. He's not like like my sister's vegan, but my brother, I would say, is 95%. I think, they have a restaurant there, and they serve a little bit of fish or whatever. And I think he eats some occasionally, but he's on his own. He's totally vegan too. So it's good. I mean, we have a lot of harmony. My sister also, it's really nice because she has a daughter, Christy, who's vegan, and she has 4 kids that are all vegan from birth and really healthy and never vaccinated and totally vegan. And just, it's really great to see these 4 generations of vegans, my mother, my daughter, her daughter and granddaughter and great-granddaughter and kids and all that. So all of our gatherings when we get together are all vegan. And there's other, like my brother has a daughter who's vegan, and from his former marriage, he has another daughter who's also vegan. So it's really spread throughout pretty much the whole clan at this point. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And I love the way that you speak about your brother. I mean, that he's not 100% vegan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're not like, oh,
No.
like you're speaking through the love and, allowing him to be who he is. And I mean, that's powerful. That's something that so many of the audience is really wanting to. How can you get to that point where you're not like saying, why'd you go back? Why are you eating the fish? Why are you hurting them? I mean, how can you be at peace there? Because I know a lot of people are wondering that.
Well, I think you have to understand that everybody does have their unique path, and it's not my business to try to change them, really. I mean, I think we want other people. We want the best for everybody. We want the best for the animals, for ecosystems, for future generations, for slaughterhouse workers. The best thing is if everybody would go vegan. I mean, that would be best if everybody was kind and loving and caring to everybody. That's the best. But the whole idea is we get into this idea that I want to change someone and make them be different, make them be like me. And if someone came up to me and I could feel their energy of, I want to change you and make you like me, a natural healthy response is to fight back, to like, wait a minute, stop it. And so, as vegans, we tend to be, especially in the beginning, kind of self-righteous, like we got the right answer. We want to go out and shake everybody till they go vegan, and just know it's for the best for them and for everybody and for us, But to understand that it doesn't work that way, essentially, because people need to come to it on their own. So the beautiful thing, though, is that we're not powerless. It's not like I can't do anything. What I can do is I can work on myself so that I am more of a vegan. And it's because people have this very narrow view of veganism. Like, veganism is just not eating meat, dairy, and eggs, not buying products tested on animals, not going to the rodeo and the circus, and not wearing wool, silk, and leather. And now I'm a vegan. And so I'm not. So now I'm perfect, and everybody else is the problem. I'm doing my part. Why don't people do their part? But I think we have to realize that veganism is loving kindness for all beings. That's what it is. And so as an expression of that, yeah, we move our consumption patterns to minimize violence towards others. That means not buying products that come from slavery. There's a lot of human slavery involved in foods and in clothing and lots of other things. And we try to minimize our consumption of things that have chemicals and cause pollution, and so we try to buy organic foods, but there's so much more than that. It's like our relationships with people, because people are also animals in the sense that we're mammals, right? We're all animals. So veganism is compassion, not just for cows and pigs and chickens, but also for human beings that are in our life. And so I've seen this so many times. Vegans can turn on each other and blame and criticize and shame each other, and or people who are not vegan. And from my point of view, that's where we really need to do the work. In my own life, to take responsibility not only for the quality of my consumption patterns, but for the quality of my relationships with other human beings and with animals and with future generations and with nature. So that's a huge thing. That's plenty to do. There's a lot to do there. That's enough to do. I don't need to try to do that for other people. If I can do it for myself, that's a full-time job, really, because it's so easy to sort of sit back and think that other people are eating too much or not eating clean enough, or there's something wrong with them, whatever it is. But that, from any spiritual perspective, we're called to there's a saying in Buddhism, not to praise myself or condemn others, but to overcome my own shortcomings. That's basically it. Don't praise yourself and condemn others. Overcome my own shortcomings. That's it. And as long as our mind has been colonized by the animal agriculture program, and that's the key thing to understand, is that all of us are wounded being born into this society. Some of us are able to heal that enough that we give up eating animal foods, so we become vegan. But that doesn't mean we're totally healed. We still have within us the wounds. I still have them, the wounds to criticize and blame and judge others and myself. So the whole idea is that then to develop the capacity to expand consciousness, to embrace reality itself, the reality that includes all beings, so that I'm living a life where what comes out of my mouth are words and expressions of kindness and caring. That's what Jesus said. He said, and it's true. I mean, what goes into us does defile us, but what comes out of us, really, what we say, how we communicate, that's really important. And so I think the responsibility comes back to us to quiet our mind. That's really the key thing, because that's the hardest thing to do, is to quiet our mind so that our thinking, instead of running at 100 RPMs all the time, which is basically just feeding us thoughts. Most of those thoughts, if we look carefully, are programmed by our upbringing or by the media in some way. And so they're pretty toxic. A lot of our thoughts are pretty toxic. And to actually learn to bring our attention to our breath and to practice breathing consciously, to slow down our breathing consciously, to look with eyes that instead of judging, we are loving and forgiving, and see that when someone does something that criticizes me, right, or unjustly accuses me of something, right, that happened. Then I want to fight back and defend myself. Instead of that, to be able to see that other people are wounded. They've been harmed when they were little kids, maybe worse than me. If someone's wounded, we don't hit them more, right? They're wounded already. When people are, when we can see people are wounded, we have a natural sense of, hopefully, of empathy that arises, and we can be understanding. And then we can say, all right, here, I'll give you some tea, and not take it personally. The whole idea is we don't need to take anything personally, but to get to that point, I can say for myself, it's taken thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of sitting in silence to quiet my mind enough that there's some space in my consciousness where I could see the sky, the infinite eternal sky of consciousness that's always there. I could never have seen that if I hadn't spent a lot of time meditating, because I was born into a cultural program of eating animal foods and competing and comparing myself to other people, all of that, and feeling angry if I got judged, or all these things, and jealous if other people had more than me. All these things, we're taught to do all that. That's like the clouds that cover the sky. And that cloud cover, it's like you never see blue sky. You can go for years and never see blue sky, because the mind is always spinning a story about me and my life and what I want and what I wish I would have gotten, what I hope they don't do and what I wish they would do. And, we're just doing that all the time. To actually be able to stop that enough that suddenly we see this blue sky of the infinite eternal nature of of who we are and what other people are, that's what we all are, then we suddenly realize that if I make these clouds and take them seriously and give them reality, then I've just put myself in a prison. I'm in this prison of reacting to other people. I mean, if my happiness depends on what other people do, it's never going to work, right? I mean, you don't know what other people can do anything. I mean, you don't know what they're going to do. They're other people. They have their program. They have their wounds. They could do anything. So our happiness has to come from the internal locus of our true nature. And the beautiful thing is, when the mind gets quiet enough and there's no thoughts, then we realize that there's this bubbling spring of joy that's always there. And there's nothing in the outer world that can add to that, really. I mean, there's that joy it's enough. It's more than enough. It's huge. And accumulating something or having some award that everybody thinks you're great, it's just nothing compared to the joy of being, the joy of actually that doesn't need any reasons in the outer world. And I think that's the thing to really understand, is the natural abundance of happiness that is our true nature, and to just give thanks for that every day. And realize that when we understand that, then we can come from a point of view of giving. Instead of trying to get something all the time, we can just give out of our abundance. And giving smiles and happiness and a few dollars here and there if people need it, whatever. Just do the best we can to give. And we'll find that we set this in motion, this giving, and then the universe responds and comes back. So that's really been the foundation. And the beautiful thing is that these are the ancient wisdom teachings. Before we talked about unity. When I was in Atlanta for that little time, I discovered unity at the Unity Church in Atlanta. I met Carol O'Connell, who went on to start the Unity Church in Marietta later. And my brother actually was the head of the whole Sunday school of Unity back then. And the Unity tradition, there's churches. So I started way back I guess it was in about 1990, traveling to Unity churches around the United States. Before that, I taught college. I had a PhD from Berkeley. I was teaching college in the Bay Area, but I said, I don't want to grade people anymore. And so I started just going to Unity churches, and I've been to hundreds and hundreds of Unity churches. Every Sunday for about 18 years, I was at a Unity church giving the Sunday morning message and the meditation and the special music and doing a workshop on developing intuition and doing a concert called Piano Passion, concert of original piano music with Madeline's art. And Madeline plays the flute, we do flute and piano, and we do individual sessions for people where we would create music and art based on their spirit for individuals or for couples. We did thousands of those. I mean, I had a dream life. I mean, I had the best possible life I could ever imagine, quite honestly. I mean, just traveling the whole United States, traveling the world. And then the World Peace Diet came out. It became a #1 Amazon bestseller worldwide. It's been translated into 18 languages. We got invited to speak in China, in India, Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe, Africa, the Middle East. We've given lectures. We've just been promoting veganism, promoting love through music and art, traveling, having everything paid for. I mean, you can't ask for a better life. I mean, I'm married to an incredibly wonderful, beautiful person. It's like, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's so great. I shouldn't say it's ridiculous, but it's just, it's just, when I think about it, I've been so blessed, and yet I found myself in a world of chaos in many ways. I mean, our world is in critical time. There's all kinds of pressures on people to do things that are not good. I mean, we're pressured financially in so many different ways, and I'm one with all of that. I feel the pain of the world too. I mean, very much, and the suffering of animals. I'm keenly aware that every day millions of animals are hung upside down by one leg and have their throats slit and are screaming in agony, and that's happening. So the background of my own, the way things have unfolded, it's just doing the work. It's just doing the work. Just doing the work of the inner work is the most important thing. And then out of that, opportunities happen. You got to, I had to jump and be willing to stand up in front of 1,000 people and talk to them. All right, I can do it. Or stand up in front of 3 people and talk to them. That can be even harder sometimes. The whole idea is to say yes to what your calling is. Find the calling, and that calling we don't just find once. It's like every day it changes. And so to keep listening intuitively, what is it to do now, and be flexible, because I think really we all have a mission for this particular lifetime. And I think we live thousands of lifetimes. This is just one. And I'll be a woman, I'll be a man, I'll be this race, that race, and it will be, who knows? We can have compassion. In the Buddhist tradition, they say everyone you ever meet at some point was your mother. And it's because we've all been going around and around for so long, and you've been their mother. Every person you ever meet, you've been their mother. They've been your mother. So love them just like a mother, that basic idea, I mean, that's probably an exaggeration, but the basic idea is that maybe it's not an exaggeration. I mean, time is absolutely infinite, so really to love veganism is just love, and there's nothing to prove. It's just to try to question the official narratives in our society that are based on the delusion of fear, and find the path to being loving, and just do the best we can to put it out there and be understanding. And it doesn't mean life will be easy. In life, there's challenges, all kinds of challenges, really. But it does mean we're living our life authentically. And that, even if it's a hard, difficult day, it's our day. It's our life. And I think that makes it worthwhile. So that's, I think, really the great gift that veganism brings, is we're in alignment with our basic, the food we're bringing in, our connection, because there's no more intimate connection with nature than food, right? We're eating, it becomes this vehicle. And with our society, it's our society and food and nature, that food is the pivot, it's the main thing. So it's so important to bring that into alignment and eat organic, whole, plant-based foods. That's so important. Here we finally, after 18 years, we were living in an RV, just traveling for 18 years in this rolling home. And now we've been about 10 years here in Northern California, and we have a food forest. So now we're taking care of 70 fruit trees and nut trees and 6 raised beds. I got to go out today and take a whole bed apart and replant it, and it's a lot of really physical work. But but we're growing a lot of our own food, and so I more and more I think that just growing food is one of the most sacred things anyone can do. We can do that for ourselves, for our neighbors, supporting people who do that at farmers markets, and so really connecting more with the earth and with nature, I think, is really critical now. But food is a key thing. If we can get our food in alignment, so it's organic and whole and plant-based, then every cell in our body is getting fed with love in a very deep way. It's very, very important, very powerful. And then become more conscious of everything, become conscious of these keys to health, like movement, creativity, connecting with nature, food, relationships, and living our purpose. And all these things, when we understand them, then we begin to see that health has many levels, and they're all interconnected. Our own health is connected with everybody else's health, really. The more we are healthy, the more that helps everybody else be healthy. The more we're eating vegan and organic, the more that helps the earth. If I'm eating meat, I'm paying for people that stab animals. I'm paying for water to be polluted by chemicals. If I take a drug, it goes through me and ends up in the water. It makes these poor frogs are getting poisoned by humans taking antidepressants. I mean, all these things. So the more we're healthy and happy, the better it is for everybody. So we can take responsibility for ourselves and be an example of that, and then find ways to share the message. For me, it was writing a book and giving lectures and concerts, and we do thousands. I've given probably, I don't know how, over 4,000 lectures, I'm sure, at least. But for Madeline, she doesn't give lectures. She does little cooking videos and does painting and knits. She does knitting, and you do great. You create the context to talk about these things. We can all find our way of contributing our unique talents and abilities in this great cause, and it's so important. There's nothing more important than this, really. I think we need to realize that.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think what you're talking about is what I talk to with my clients, about living in alignment with yourself. I mean, living in alignment with your values and your beliefs as a vegan, and expanding that out to the whole world, living in alignment with peace with other people, so that no matter what they say, no matter what they do, you still can sleep at night. Because people are like, how can I go to sleep at night if animals are being tortured? And what I say to that is, as long as you're doing your best, and living in peace in this vegan, which is love for all, and understanding that some people they can't grasp the concept, and you're not responsible for that. You're responsible for throwing seeds and being just a vision of love, a loving veganism. Then I can sleep at night, and having compassion for others, like slaughterhouse workers. So how would you have compassion for a slaughterhouse worker, Dr. Will?
Oh, that's easy. And I really hope people will read the book I wrote, The World Peace Diet, because that gives the historical context of this is 10,000 years, right? There's 10,000 years of cultural momentum that has created rituals and religious systems and economic and political and educational systems that are all organized around animal agriculture. And we're born into that. So the fact that anybody goes vegan is a celebration. It's a miracle, really. I mean, to actually question my mother and my father. I mean, as soon as we're born, they give us food. I remember when I was in Switzerland, and I was watching a mother duck and her little ducklings. And I realized what she was doing was she was teaching her little ducklings, this is food, this isn't food, don't eat this, eat this. And I realized across all species, the most important thing the parents teach the offspring is food. And so to actually question your parents' food, it's a major accomplishment to successfully do that and say, oh, I'm not going to eat what my parents told me to eat, because I can see ethically it's not a good idea. So we need to understand that this is people are just deeply indoctrinated, and we're beckoning them out of the prison and come on out. It's great out here, but we can't force them. And we've been to slaughterhouses, and I remember thinking when I was there, these workers were coming in into the locker rooms, and they had to change their clothes and put on these boots and things, and they're going to be with blood. And I just thought, this is the worst job. I mean, there's nothing worse than this. You can't think of a worse job than just stabbing animals all day, or impregnating them against their will on a rape rack with a gun all day, or cutting up their bodies. I mean, these workers do horrible work that no one wants to do. And most people go to the restaurant or they go to the supermarket and they buy the flesh or cheese, and it's all wrapped, and they don't see the blood and the horror and the misery that people have to see to do it. And I've been to stockyards where the men are prodding the animals, and I can tell the men are half dead. Really, their feelings are completely shut down. And I feel great compassion for these people, these men. It's usually men, but sometimes it's women too. They're doing the work that brings out the worst in them. And I mean, I love them so much. They're doing the dirty work, for everybody that nobody wants to take responsibility for. And I would love it. That's one of the main reasons I want everybody to go vegan, is so that human beings don't have to be put in that position of just being violent, because they have the highest rates of suicide, drug addiction, alcoholism, spousal, they abuse their kids often. It goes through the generations, this kind of violence. And so just thinking about the workers, I think that would make anybody go vegan. And thinking about the hungry people and the animals, wildlife, all of it. It's such a great gift to stop supporting that, for sure.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. And we got so many comments. I'm going to show one right here from Trisha. And she's a very young vegan, but she just said, here I go. She became vegan in January, and right away she was following me, and we've spoken. And so, she's the founder of Compassion Rising. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And, vegan child-based initiative focusing
my mission is to bring out the innate seed of compassion within all children before it is conditioned out of them. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, and it's beautiful. I think it's great. There's no greater cause than this cause. It's the fundamental thing. If we're going to insist on imprisoning animals, and yet we think we want freedom, we want health, we want abundance, we want to have an authentic life with a purpose, and yet we're stealing their purposes, we're stealing their health, we're stealing their freedom, we're stealing their kids, we're stealing everything from them. What grounds do we have to say that we deserve something, right? I mean, we've got to wake up out of this. I mean, that's number one priority. There's no greater gift anyone can give the world or their loved ones or themselves than to spread the vegan message. I mean, this is the message. We don't have to call it veganism. Don't even use that word. I mean, say the love for all beings, or freedom for everyone, or however you want to say it. But, that's it.
Yeah, you're right. I know. And that's a great point. You don't have to say vegan. And some people get mad if you don't say vegan, but say whatever you feel from your heart, right? And whatever's going to be taken away from you and the ego to what's going to help the world, right? And I was thinking that probably people at church think I'm crazy and radical. I mean, an animal lover, but that's okay, because I'm the leader of the animal ministry. So I feel like as the leader of the animal ministry, then I'm in alignment with that by not eating animals and by being radical about animals. So, that's wonderful. And that was brought into me. They asked me, if I had known it was up, I would have been like, I want to do it. But no, it was a gift from the universe, because I was living in alignment with this being of connection with nature, connection with animals, and they saw that. So, and that's what lets me sleep at night, right? Despite the fact that there's all sorts of cruelty and sadness and everything in the world, I'm responsible for myself, and I'm doing what I need to do so I can sleep at peace. And what I can do is pray for the factory workers. I can sit there and meditate for people that are eating animals so that they will receive an awakening, right? So, it's not like I can't do anything. What I can do is send energy of love. And that's what veganism is to me, sending that love out, right? And taking care of yourself, because as a coach, that's what I want vegans to come to me, I mean, to work on their self so they can live in peacefulness. It's crucial. Um, so
That's
tell
it.
me, I know it's exciting to hear you, because it's wonderful to hear these amazing. It's elevated love. It's what's coming from you. Elevated love to all. I mean, everyone, no matter who they are. If they're angry, they're hurt, and well, how can we send love to them? Because I mean, that's what this world is about. Um,
Right. Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
tell me, I know we're getting close on time. I could talk all day. Actually, I don't have any appointments, but um, what's your practice like? What would you tell people like to bring their sense of calmness? Like, what's your practice of daily meditation, or what do you do in the day to set up your day for allowing more peace into your life?
Yes. Yeah, I am going to have to go here in a minute, but
Okay.
I'll so I think the most important thing is to have a morning program, like start off uh, with like as soon as the uh, alarm goes off, or however it is you kind of wake up in the morning. We usually get up pretty early, and then um, cultivate right the very first thought, give thanks for another day and opportunity, sort of set that feeling of gratitude and whatever it is, I mean, whatever your question is, maybe for the day, or what is this at a deeper level. I kind of live with that question of what am I. It's just to go deeper with that beyond just the physical level. But I basically and have about a 2.5 hours in the morning where I just is my morning meditation prayer time, and it's sitting for in meditation for about a little over maybe an hour and 15 minutes, I guess, something like that. And just washing. Uh, I think it's a really good idea to train the body to eliminate, right? And you can do it. I mean, so I always do that in the very beginning, and get some fresh air, do some exercise, but then meditate, and then I do some pranayama, breathing meditation. And my meditation practice is a Zen-based practice of just bare attention, just listening and being present and being open to the question of what is the source of what I am, and just open to that and connect, and letting go of thinking and just being present. And I do some journal writing after that. I do some scriptural reading, something that's very inspiring and helpful. And then I do some yoga and some exercise. And then I come out after, by that point, it's about 8 o'clock, and go to the piano, straight to the piano, and I play the piano. And then Madeline comes out about 50 minutes later with her silver flute, and then we play together, and then we connect with each other and how our night was and all that. And then I do some more. I go out and do some Tai Chi. Then I take my bike, I ride down to the lake, and I swim. We have a lake right here. So I take a swim. I pretty much do that, whether it's hot or cold or whatever, it doesn't matter. I take a swim and then come back and then do some Tai Chi and Qigong. And then I go into the day, whatever it is, like working at the computer and this and that. In the afternoon is usually reserved, at least for a few hours, out in the yard, in the garden, working with the earth and things like that.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
we're setting up a lecture tour right now. We'll be going to Florida and to the southern states for about 4 months, in December, January, February, and March. So we're setting that up too.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. And then, so what's your website? And where can
It's
people
just,
buy that?
yeah, my website is that's two, really. It's just Will Tuttle, just my name, willtuttle.com, and worldpeacediet.com, worldpeacediet.com, or willtuttle.com. They go to the same place pretty much.
Well, great. We're all big fans, and we're going to let you go, even though we don't want to. We're so blessed by this, by all this insight and knowledge and grounding. So thank you so much. And just, I don't even know how to thank you enough. It just is a blessing to feel that wonderful energy. And everything that you've shared with us.
Wow. Well, thank you, Marikita. I really appreciate your creating the space for us to share like this. And I want to thank everyone for listening and knowing that we can go forth and multiply the message. I think that's the thing to do, multiply the message in our own unique way, however that is. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yes. And thanks everybody for watching. And I appreciate all of you all. We're all coming together to make this world a better place.
Exactly.
So,
Bless you. All right. Thanks.
all right. Thank you, everybody. Namaste, vegan.
Namaste. Right. Namaste.